Hello, I'm Samveg.
I'm Kuldeep. Welcome back to our channel, Chat with SK.
So, Kuldeep, we always hear a term MVP. Like wherever we go in startup world or in college world, we always hear about MVP. So, what is an MVP?
So let's go by the full form of MVP first. So MVP stands for minimum viable product. So I think as the name suggests, minimum viable product. So when we're trying to build a product, firstly build an MVP, that is minimum viable product. So as you might have guessed it, we sort of build something that is minimal, but at the same time it also represents our solution as a whole. So we are doing when we say that we want to build an MVP, we sort of build a miniature version first, we test it in the market, and then we scale it. So yeah, that was about the full form and the MVP. Some way.
Right. So, when I hear you, it's basically any the minimalistic approach towards your solution, the solution which we have already talked about on how to research and
Mm-hmm.
all those stuff in our previous videos. So that's basically the minimalistic approach to your solution, and then putting it to your users that they
Yep.
can use it and let you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, that's still a little bit vague. And is there a border to it? We can discuss it later. But
Mm-hmm.
let's tell our users, our reviewers first that what's not an MVP because we often consume, okay, this is a full
Exactly.
fledged project, this is an MVP. So, what's the borderline which basically differentiates these two?
For example, when we are solving a problem, and especially when we are trying to build a business from that specific solution, there are two things that comes into mind. First of all, we see whether we are first of all building the solution as a whole, and then we try to sort of make business from out of it. So when we are looking, especially in the second part, when we try to make business out of it, or just to make the user experience a bit more better, what we do is we try to add extra features into the application. We provide extra options, we provide extra, all extra things in the application that basically eases the user experience into that specific application. So anything, if you're building a product, and there's something that is very core to any specific solution. It can be anything. For example, if you're talking about Facebook, then or in an MVP, what can be there, setting up your profile, sending a friend request, and posting posts in the Facebook wall. So this sort of things can be there in an MVP. But when I say that, where we don't have to include those extra features, we buy those extra features. What I mean is, for example, nowadays Facebook suggests you might know this person. That is something
Correct.
that is an extra thing. So anything that probably comes to your mind as and as extra, probably you can omit that thing from MVP, and build that specific MVP first without those features. If it works good, then add those features, and basically sort of iterate on your design thinking process, and on keep on adding or removing features as you go ahead in this line. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right.
So yeah, Samvik, when we talk about what is not an MVP, we also think about because it is something that we have to decide, that these things should be there in the MVP, then this thing should not be there in MVP. So when I say that we have to decide, we have to come down, we have to list down features. So there also comes an important factor, the time thing. So can you throw some light on what should be
Sure.
the sort of
Sure.
timeline of building an MVP and all those things? Yeah.
Sure. So let's understand first why do we need an MVP, and then we will
Mhm.
shift to timeline, right? So the so you actually sum it pretty well. If you're building Facebook, and basically an MVP should be like creating maybe a post and posting something on the wall and creating a profile. Now, why do we need an MVP? Is because what we as founders do is one of the biggest mistake is to keep on adding features before releasing an MVP. And there's a very great sentence that one of uh, person whom we both of us follow very, and that's Mark Cuban. He says perfection kills growth, right? And I love the statement. Just to make it pretty clear to our users what he means exactly by this is basically when you keep on adding features, you actually never get time to release a particular platform or a product to the users. So instead of you thinking that this particular platform or this particular feature might be liked by the users, release a smaller version of it to the user and let user tell you what exactly that is, right? So this is one of the basic things of what we discuss in MVP. And talking about what you said as an incremental update is one of the most basic and useful things of MVP. You build an MVP and then you keep on bringing some more features to test out
Yeah,
features and then to see
definitely.
what users might like, what
Mm-hmm.
they might not like. There are a couple of things. There are design thinking process,
Yep.
bringing in the waterfall method. The most industries right now following is the agile development and all those stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can read about that. All the links are in the description below about that, obviously, and you can find it. So, answering your question, what's an ideal timeline, right? So there's a page called Y Combinator, right, whom the complete startup world knows and research it thoroughly, and you
Yeah.
can go to any other places. The most common timeline decided for any particular MVP is 1 to 1.5 months. That is something you should be able to release your MVP in, right? Now there's an exception to it, which I'll talk about later. But why this timeline is because you need to have a very small set of features that you can cover in 1 to 1.5 months, and the most crucial thing is not keep on adding the features into this 1 to 1.5 months timeline. Once we build something, our natural process to okay हम ये भी डाल देते ये भी डालते ये भी डालते
Exactly,
users will
exactly.
like it, and then this goes to 3 months 6 months and then you
Yeah.
don't release the platform. So 1 to 1.5 months is the crucial timeline. Another thing is the exception to that I was talking about is, let's say you are building something which is, let's say, a startup related to space, right? Or anything which is basically research intensive. So when we talk about research intensive startups, that might go up to 6 months to 1 year. That is completely fine depending upon your researches. But if that's not the case, 1 to 1.5 is the most optimum timeline for developing an MVP and bringing it to the market.
Okay.
This was basically about timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, guys, if you have liked the video till now, do hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any update we're releasing. And yeah, so now, Kuldeep, why should these people listen to us? We are saying कि okay भाई एक से 1.5 महीने में MVP बना लो, MVP
Yep.
ये MVP वो है. Don't bring your product, bring MVP, right? So this should be these statements we are making should be backed by very solid examples, I
Yeah.
think, because even
Mm-hmm.
if I was a viewer, I need solid examples to follow something.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's give them a reason to first build an MVP, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Sure.
let's start with it.
Yeah, sure, sure. So let's start with a A stands for Amazon. Okay, so last year it did a business of $386 billion. So yeah, it is pretty huge. So let's talk about their MVP. So when like Amazon actually started selling online books. So as you say, as we say, like that these are visionary people who see the future way ahead of the time. So probably in 1996 or 97, when Jeff Bezos actually realized that that internet is something that is gonna boom, it is something that will be an obvious thing that people will have in in the next coming decades. So he started thinking, why can I, if if internet will become the necessity, then why not utilize it and sort of solve some of the problems of the users. So yeah, he started with the basic one, started selling books online. Initial in the first place at Amazon, you can find and buy some books, and that they will sort of deliver at your doorstep. So yeah, that was one of the initial thing that they did. And a lot of people like the idea. They started they started ordering from over there. And as they started getting more validation on the idea, they started adding new products. They started they started exploring a new whole new domain of user experience and sort of thing. So yeah, they started the single book idea. Now they started selling the cloud service
Everything.
solutions as well. Now they're into streaming, now they're into gaming, and yeah, next week they're going into space as well. So yeah, this is how they started. This is how the choice started, selling books online, and now they're going to space. Yeah, that was
Right.
about Amazon.
Correct. So even I'm sure you also receive few messages on LinkedIn. I do too. So some college students come up with an idea that I have an e-commerce. Basically, I have an e-commerce platform.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Samveg, I am starting an e-commerce platform. I have looked into your profile. You have some experience with startups. So how do I get basically the delivery people? Right? I
Okay,
also
so
come to starting a startup. You're starting a startup, man. Jeff Bezos delivered his own books. Why can't you? And in fact, that's what made him Jeff Bezos, right?
yeah,
When he when he sold books, he came much closer to users than a delivery guy would have come. He
exactly.
used to talk to
And
the customers what they expect and all those things, right?
definitely,
So
definitely, definitely. And nowadays, like it is much simpler as well. For example, at that time, when Jeff Bezos started, like he had no idea about. For example, when you're talking about e-commerce, so product also comes into picture. Like it is not like you can sell everything. Your product should also be, since it is online. A lot of people are gonna comment about it. So like your product should also be to the point thing. But so this e-commerce experience actually brings customer closer to the business as well.
100%,
So like
one
instead
hundred
of
percent.
right now, instead of building your own e-commerce website, you can just like sign up on Amazon Business Suite, and you can start selling your product. If you get good, you can like sort of build your own e-commerce out of it. So yeah, that is also
Exactly,
something that is
exactly.
sort of easing in nowadays. So yeah.
Exactly, and just to expand this a little bit more, and we'll get into the next example right after this.
Mm.
But what they did was cloud service was another example of how they did it. They were facing
Yeah.
the problem of having good cloud
Mm.
services for Amazon, so they built and they saw okay, other startups were also facing this problem. They started with Amazon S3 buckets, and that was their first product in AWS, and then they grew up. And not to forget, in his interview, he said that I did have a vision of bringing everything on selling everything online, but he chose with books and started with books at that time, proving that basically, okay, if people like this, they will like groceries. They cannot start immediately selling groceries, right? So that's how it started. And now from selling books to building a revenue of like $385 billion is not a joke,
Yeah.
obviously, but that's how MVP plays role. Now,
You
this
just
again
you
brings
just
us,
you just wiped $1 billion from their revenue, bro.
yeah, yes, exactly, exactly. So, I mean, yeah. So this is one example. Now, when we're talking about startups and college
Mm.
students, there is a special place for Facebook in here, right? A college dropout, which everyone knows, Mark
Yeah.
Zuckerberg, and then how he started. So, it might or might not be the case that he was having a vision of connecting the complete world
Mm.
on internet, right? But he did start with something very small as to connecting his complete college on a very simple platform where you can share pictures of it, right? And that was the start of it. He got millions of fundings and then transformed
Yeah.
something so huge that is generating a revenue of now $85 billion out of advertisements, Oculus Rift, and all those stuff. That is fine. But just imagine how simple that would have been. Now, what if on the day one he thought of okay, मैं सब चीज डाल दूंगा, मैं गेम्स भी डाल दूंगा, मैं
Yeah.
पिक्चर्स भी शेयर करवाऊंगा, उस पे लाइक्स भी आएंगे, कमेंट्स भी आएंगे, कमेंट्स पे भी रिप्लाई आएंगे, कमेंट्स पे रिप्लाई
React की option
रिएक्शन रहेगा.
रहेगा.
So he would not even have started that project, right? So that's why an MVP is important. You need to spend some amount of time on deciding features. 1 to 1.5 months the timeline. Don't forget about that and just start something up. There's one more famous startup which Kuldeep and I especially like. So yeah, Kuldeep,
Yes, yes,
on.
yes, definitely. So that startup is Airbnb. So like it is one of thing that we actually closely relate with those founders actually when we are reading about their their journey. So yeah, again, Airbnb is as you can see in the screen, like that in the initial version they just had in the website they had two options. Like if you want to rent your location, you can put it there. If you are looking for location, if you're looking for such houses in specific location, you can put it over there. So it was their idea was to if for example if you own a specific place, if you own a physical location and you're moving out for some time, that's so your house will be empty for 2 to 3 months, let's say. So basically you can you can rent your house to those random strangers, who can stay over your house, and you can also make sort of side income out of it. So that was the basic idea that they wanted to that they to put into the website. So yeah, as we say, these are the only things that they put actually in the MVP, like two options. If you want to rent your place, just enter the details. If you're looking for such location, just enter your details, and they will sort of do matchmaking, and they will give you the location where you can finally go and stay at that place. So yeah, that was the Airbnb. That was the MVP of the Airbnb. They did not have some fancy features, like that we will integrate the Google Maps. We'll integrate the maps. We will integrate the sorting feature based on the amenities, whether they have AC, whether they have pool, swimming pool, all sort of things.
It
So
was all
these are some
iterative. It was all iterative.
exactly. So that is the point. Just minimize and freeze some features and then just release it and test user feedback and then move on. So that was about Airbnb thing. Again, we have some very good example, that did not even had a product, but it was an MVP, and nowadays it
Right.
is $1 billion business. Something, if you want to talk about it, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what happens is people don't realize it. So what we are giving examples, some it might look that they are all tech examples, right?
Yeah.
And what if they don't know tech? You actually don't need to know tech for this. This was still a somewhat built MVP of what Kuldeep talked about Airbnb, right? Their first thing was very simple. What they started with was there was a design conference in their town, right? And what they did was they contacted the people, basically the manager of that
Mhm.
designing conference. They know, okay, what is your venue? They bought places around it. By what I mean by bought is basically they rented place around it and
Mhm.
then sold room by room to the different people coming in. Now, these design conference attendees were usually teenagers like us. We don't want to book a very expensive hotel room.
Mhm.
We don't need those things, right? So what they did was they just rented out small places and then gave this to them. One funny thing that happened was, which again become their name was basically they the one who rented them out needed the place back
Yeah.
again. So then they could not rent it out. So what did they made their home as an Airbnb, right? And for compensation, since it was a little bit distant from the conference hall, they gave the free breakfast to them, and hence the name Air Bed and Breakfast, which is commonly known as
Yeah,
Airbnb.
exactly.
So for this, they didn't need any tech, right? So you don't need any tech. You need to bring out some innovation into this, and you can just execute things in a simpler way to see if it works out. If it works out, you can obviously spend money, a little bit of amount of your money into making tech and all this stuff.
Also,
This is how this started.
exactly, that also
Yeah,
gives us an insight about that your MVP need not be a tech thing. It can be some
exactly,
experience. For example, in this case, the tech was just a facilitator in their whole solution. So you should
exactly.
also keep these things in mind, that, yeah. So
Exactly. So just to clarify this point again, I'll bring in another huge startup, right? Huge startup that is Dropbox. Dropbox is basically what you can understand is a file storing and a sharing system, just like Google Drive and something. So to tell you the importance of that, it has I like especially mentioned it has a revenue of $2 billion, and that is a recurring revenue. So if, in case you don't know what a recurring revenue is, you can check out the link below in the description. But just to mention you, the MVP they had did not have to do anything with the technology. What they did was they just made a video of how Dropbox will look like. Basically, what would be the functionality of Dropbox, that is storing the files and then sharing it with others. That's what which Google Drives do, what Dropbox do, and all this stuff, right? So that was it. The video was their MVP. They made a video, they put it in front of their users. The users loved that platform. Okay, we'll use anything what they're gonna make into, and then when they got the confirmation, that's when they built this product. And now, not to mention, as I mentioned, it's $2 billion in like recurring revenue. So that is something huge. There's another startup called Groupon. Again, the simple coupon-based platform started by two founders who had already failed the startup. What's the story?
So yeah, let's talk about Groupon. So there are also not techies. There are also some tech giants where you can find all sorts of coupons for everything that you want to. So yeah, let's talk about Groupon. So Groupon is also another tech example. All the examples that we talked about, these are not some tech giants. They're based on tech, and their whole stack is basically tech. So Groupon is also one of such examples, and it is this is one example with which I can relate more, because their MVP was something that we can basically relate with in nowadays, every entrepreneur can relate with it. So yeah, back in 2007, they had they started with a simple WordPress website. So what is a WordPress? It is a simple CMS with which with drag and drop we can basically build a whole website in 5 to 10 minutes. So they started from there, and what they did was they started posting one blog and every day, and in those blogs they were sort of providing some coupons for some specific products. So initially they had a they had specific red t-shirt which they should put up, and it also mentions the size and the color of the that t-shirt. So if you wanted another size, you can just mail them in a specific email, and they will sort of provide if they have such thing in the inventory. So this all started they had to send those emails manually, hand by hand, and they used to type those emails. They used to generate around 500 PDFs every day, and that those PDFs used to have those coupons, and ultimately that will be consumed by those users. So yeah, that was one of the MVP for Groupon. And yeah, nowadays we can see that they also have released their IPO, and they're doing great. So that was about
Yeah,
Groupon.
right. That was awesome. So we really hope that the next big MVP comes from one of our viewers, right?
Yeah.
And so what you're waiting for, startup, right? Uh, Thanks for watching till here. I We hope to entertain you more, inform you about more things, right? So what's next, Kuldeep?
So thanks for watching till here. And in the coming videos, we'll be talking about OKRs. I'm not telling the full form because we are obviously making a video on it. So yeah, stay tuned for that. We'll be talking about how to interact with our initial customers. We'll be also talking about the fancy term which you might have, which you might be hearing quite a lot nowadays. That is the funding. And apart from it, since this is specifically about college students who want to do something, so how to get those free resources to get started. Basically, we know that we don't have much of the capital to get started on our own. So yeah, there are a lot of initiatives from where you can actually get it. So we'll be talking about this four things in the next coming maybe one four videos. So yeah.
Yes, so it's gonna be immensely useful for all of you. So please like the video. Don't forget to leave a comment if you have anything specific that you want us to discuss about or how you found this video. And do share with your friends who might need this, right? The more we educate others, the more startups we have, the better what you
Yeah.
can say revenue and country capital and all those things we have, right? So let's make this country big. Let's have all couple of cool startups in India. And till then, stay safe, take care. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Lit. Roll up to the